Ambedkarist Buddhism, which is also now internationally known as Engaged Buddhism, is the only emancipatory ideology that exists in the world, especially to contest the Brahminic hegemony, hierarchy, and the constructed caste system. Ambedkar, by his own experience, by his own reading and research, and the childhood experience of discrimination that he felt as a student, as a researcher, and even when he was a civil servant, he had directly suffered what it means to be a discrimination. Because of that, he understood the reality of Indian society, and the major stumbling block for emancipation or egalitarianism is the caste system. That is why throughout his writings and activities and speeches, his main aim was to annihilate caste. Because caste is the only phenomena which divides people, which is against the idea of equality, which is against the idea of freedom, which is against the idea of fraternity. So it is because of his own education and exposure to European thought also that he gained the idea that unless and until human beings can live as brothers or sisters, unless and until that human beings have equality, there is no possibility of emancipation. He knew very well that Brahmanism is a construct. It's not a sui generis philosophy. The migrants who infiltrated into the North India established their own system of hierarchy. And we know, especially in South India, we know from the literature of Sangam and even up to 10th, 12th century, we know that in Kerala, especially in South India, we had a very egalitarian culture, social, cultural fabric of South India, right from the Sangam age till the 10th, 12th century was egalitarian. We know that there is no caste by birth. During the Sangam age, we know that people were divided according to their occupation. And the people who reside in one geospace, if they move to another space, they would take another job. So it's very flexible kind of based division among people based on their occupation, simply as that. So the consolidation of that existing division among the indigenous inhabitants was imposed into an imposed hierarchy which is static, which, as Ambedkar himself put it, is almost like a 4-storied building and there is no ladder from one to another. So in order to destroy, which is a Herculean task, Ambedkar himself was aware of it, so he was doing research on how to do it. That's why he studied almost all the religions in the world because of his prolific reading. And he tried Islam, he tried Christianity, Zoroastrianism, Sikhism, and then he came to the conclusion that the only possibility for a religion, if at all there is a religion, to be embraced by the Dalit and Bahujans in this country, it could be Buddhism. But he was also aware, like we now are aware, there are differences, different groups among Buddhism. There is Vajrayanam, there is Mahayanam. So he was using his ideals or the liberation ideology of the Dalit Bahujans based on equality, fraternity, and freedom, and using the social emancipatory possibilities of Buddhism. It was not following the kind of the so-called spirituality and Buddhism as a religion, but the principles of Buddha, especially morality, compassion, dana, prajna, shila. So he was saying it's not enough that you should have a knowledge or prajna or wisdom, but you should also understand the reality. But how can you practice? It is through the shilas. So that is why he used the Buddhist principles, especially the Buddhist principles focusing on the possibility of social transformation. It's not for a religious or a philosophical or a metaphysical change that he was advocating. So the only possibility for Indian society to be emancipated, for all people to be treated as equal, as the ideas of fraternity or egalitarian philosophy. That is why he took his life mission to write a Bible for Buddhism. A Bible, because in all other, he has the Quran is there, Bible is there. But for the Dalit Bahujans, there is no significant volume or philosophy or practical philosophy which could be adopted as a Bible. That's why he said Buddha and his Dhamma. That is where he advocated, he explained all the principles of Buddhism, not in the way as Mahayanis or Vajrayanis or the highly religious spiritual Buddhists interpreted it, but as a socially pragmatic activist. He was interpreting, he gave his own interpretation to many of the ideas that Buddhist principles, Buddhist doctrine. Of course, we as students of Buddhism and Pali language know that many of the original ideas or doctrines of Buddhism has been misinterpreted, because even the first or second translators were Brahmins. It's quite natural that they might have influenced their own ideas, but still, because of this book, the Buddha and his Dhamma, there is a possibility for Indian Dalit and Bahujans to read and understand and practice. So that's why the Sila is very important. Many of Dalit Bahujans who claims that they are Buddhist, unfortunately, are not following the Silas. Without following the Silas, there is no use in your preaching. So that is why it is not enough that you have to realize. For example, we have many friends around us, educated, uneducated. But Ambedkar himself said, the moment you accept Gita or Purana or Ramayana, you cannot liberate yourself. So, Anatta, Anicca, and Dukkha. If you believe that there is a soul, then even Buddha himself was asked by Ananda, when would you speak about soul? And Buddha was simply smiling and saying, there are many other important things in the world for you to discuss and think over. Why should you worry about this? As long as you are alive, try to do something good for the society. So the principle of ethics and morality, the high principles of morality, Ubeka, all these paramitas, at least 10 paramitas you try to practice, or at least Manjusila you try to practice. Let me ask a question myself. How many Dalit Bahujans practice at least Panchasila? And you are not practicing it, and how can you can give lectures on Ambedkar Buddhism or Buddhism, but you are not practicing it. As long as we don't practice it, who will take it for granted that you are a Buddhist? So my way of looking at Buddhism is good that we understand Buddhist principles, we understand Ambedkar principles, we understand how Ambedkar took pains to imbibe the Buddhist values into our constitution, for which we are proud of, and especially at a time when even this constitution, which we are proud of, with the ideas of Buddha and Ambedkar, is now every attempt is made to torpedo it. Every now and then these ideas will disappear, or they will make it disappear. The question of one language, one religion, maybe one election, one government, the plurality, the diversity, and the diversity of the egalitarian culture will soon, we are afraid, will be disappearing. So it is the moment for many of the Dalit Bahujans to realize how Brahmanism had misinterpreted, interpolated the indigenous cultures, their traditions, their rituals. You can see there are innumerable instances of Buddhist social, cultural ethos can be found in Kerala society even now. Even our rituals, even our celebrations, even in our practices. So, but all these have now been interpreted. All indigenous deities, Mada or Karapu or Karapan, Puttichathan, has now been interpreted as Hindu pantheon of gods. Actually, as my own research has proved it, no indigenous deities have any relation with Brahmanic gods or Hindu pantheon of gods. But Dalit themselves, Dalit virgins, I'm sorry to say that, Dalit virgins themselves take pride in saying that I'm not worshipping the indigenous deities, I'm worshipping Vishnu or Shivan. For example, the proletarian deity, Parasini Muthappan. During my research, I had an interaction with them. So I was asking, the legend, the oral history tells that he was a Adivasi or a tribal leader who fought for their rights. But now they are made a golden statue of Muthappan and they are saying it is Shiva. So all these indigenous deities and the pattern of worship also has been Brahminized. Their oral tales have been interpolated and interpreted. But the irony is that even Dalit Bahujan educated researchers take it for granted that they are Vishnu or Shiva. So they accept without questioning, without criticizing the Brahmanic interpretation, the Brahmanically interpolated rituals and traditions. Another defect, I would say, among the Dalit Bahujans is that actually people who are Ambedkarist, Dalit Bahujans who are interested in Buddhism, why there is no unity, there is no coordination among themselves. Dr. Sugathan and we and many people at many times sat and discussed the possibility of coordinating the Buddhist groups, different groups. In Kerala, I'm sure Dr. Ajay also knows it. But many of them are for political power. Many of them are, in their own way. So unless and until, is it not high time that we, people who are Ambedkarite Buddhists, despite of their, political preferences, why don't we unite and at least have a coordination to say that, South Indian Buddhist Society or Kerala Buddhist Society, instead of you are having your own factions, your own activities, it's very frustrating for people like us. Many who had pioneers like Dr. Sugathan have been trying to arrive at a consensus, but unfortunately, it's a very sad story that despite many efforts, the few people that we are now not in a position to unite. And if we can probably consolidate ourselves and try to bring in, the discourses of Ambedkar and Buddhism, especially in school levels, in education levels, and of course, universities are now taking up, like you are the chairing a center for Buddhist studies. But that is a part, an academic level is happening. But what I'm asking is culturally, who are we now? Now let's ask the question. You are a Buddhist, but you are practicing almost all Hindu rituals. There are very few exceptions. I, for myself, I have not followed any Hindu practice throughout my life. For my marriage, for any rituals, death, even now. So we are not believing in God. But how many of the Buddhists, the present Buddhists in Kerala could say that they don't believe in God, they are atheist, they don't believe in soul? Many of the Dalit Bahujans even now read Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, and the flock to temples. So my point is that education is not enough, as Ambedkar really puts it, or Buddha really put it. It's not your academic knowledge that make you. It is the prajna. Prajna meaning understanding the reality of things. What is the reality of things? The reality of things is that nothing is permanent. The reality is that there is nothing above it. Every element is a composite of elements. Every compound is a composite of elements. So when it is divided, when it is separated, there is nothing left. So that is the understanding of reality. If you understand the reality, there is a problem. And if you understand the problem, there is a way to. That is why Buddha said it. Dukkha is often translated as sadness. It's not exactly like that. Dukkha is very unsatisfactoriness. A millionaire is unsatisfied because he wants to have more. A poor fellow is also satisfied because he doesn't have square meals. So there is no limit to satisfy your resources because, as we know, the means are limited. So there is no way by which you can satisfy all your wants. So let us and don't think too much about the past, but also live in the present. So Buddhist ethos, Buddhist social, cultural ethos has tremendously influenced Kerala social fabric. We are proud of Kerala relations. We are proud of Kerala Reformation. But the seeds of Kerala Reformation were still in Buddhist thoughts. It is up to 10th, 12th century, it was still strong. Yeah, of course, since 7th century, Sankara had his own waging war against all kinds of indigenous cultures and religions, and they fought for it. And it is because of the resistance that the Dalit Bhojans fought against the Brahmanism that we are treated as slaves or mlechas or panchamas. And this century-long oppression of the people probably dissuaded the Dalit Bhojans from embracing Buddhism because they don't want to go back to that stage where they are oppressed. You see, education was denied, access to public roads was denied, there was no freedom to cover their breast, but all this we call it Kerala modernity. Now, Kerala modernity is different from the modernity on the North India because it is spearheaded, pioneered by the Dalit Bhojans only. It's Ayangali, it's Poigel Yohanan, it's Narayana Guru, it's Chatrami Swamigal. So that way, what we are now proud of Kerala modernity is, of course, a continuation of the kind of social egalitarian philosophy that was inbuilt, that was brought, that was prevalent, that was strong in Kerala.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.